scheming prince who couldn't care less about the throne. He only had eyes for the crown prince. Months before his brother's wedding, he engineered an accident that sent the crown prince tumbling off a cliff, and no one ever found him. He'd successfully kidnapped the crown prince who had lost all his memory. Xiao Yuan was the emperor's adopted son, ranked 6th and given the title Prince K. To cover his tracks, the scheming prince brought Xiao Wan into the manor along with 2 courtesans. Of his memory, Wiped Xiao Wan still had that crown prince dignity in his bones. He flat out refused to believe he was a courtesan. Xiao Yuan gazed at him with burning affection, dismissed the servants, pulled Xiao Wan close, and tore off the disguised mask on his face. That strikingly handsome face was finally revealed. Xiao Yuan murmured softly, "I am the emperor's 6th son, Prince K. Xiao Yuan. Your identity doesn't matter. From now on, you belong to me. I'll give you a new name. How does Lin Lang sound?" Xiao Wan's head was pounding. On his way back to his room, he came across a body covered with a white sheet. A servant explained the man had sneaked some wine and accidentally drowned. He had no idea this was the one person who'd recognized him. Killed on his way to sound the alarm. Xiao Wan still had his old habit. He had to be spotlessly clean before bed. But just as he was about to undress, someone grabbed him from behind. Who else could it be but Xiao Yuan? His eyes looked gentle on the surface, but Xiao Wan still had his crown prince instincts. Those sharp, dangerous eyes gave him away. This was a man who needed to control everything. He asked again about his real identity, but got nothing but another vague, non-answer. Xiao Wan gave up digging, and just started stripping down to take a bath. Xiao Yuan watched with great interest, making 0 moves to leave. The crown prince sure is used to being pampered. No shame on dressing in front of others. Aren't you worried I'll just take what I want? Xiao Wan had no clue what Dre thoughts were running through the man outside his door. He'd been racking his brain but couldn't come up. When Xiao Wan stepped out of the bath, Xiao Yuan was still waiting at the door. He immediately pulled the one he'd been longing for into his arms. Xiao Wan, confused, asked him, "Am I just supposed to stay locked up in here forever?" Xiao Wan gave the man in his arms a smoldering look. "Next month I'll take you back to mine and you can go wherever you want after that." But what he was really thinking was, as long as that wedding next month never happens, you'll be mine forever. Have no idea how obsessive this young prince can get, all because he fell for the crown prince. He coldly plotted to send his brother off a cliff, then tracked down the amnesiac and kept him locked up in his manor. Xiao Wan only has eyes for the crown prince. All he wants is to be close to him, every single moment. Xiao Wan looked at him blankly. "Aren't you worried I'll sneak off?" "Go ahead, I'll break your legs." Xiao Wan was genuinely confused. "There are so many beauties in this manor, why on earth did you pick me?" Though that bit about breaking legs, that sounded very real. With nowhere else to go, he had no choice but to settle in for now. After spending several days, Xiao Wan finally confirmed what he'd suspected all along. His brother never actually liked bland food, and the ambergris incense, that was fake too. It was all just an act to match the emperor's tastes. This little guy is sharper than he looks. He reached over and brushed a grain of rice off the crown prince's cheek. Xiao Wan's face went red instant. This guy has 0 boundaries. After dinner, Xiao Wan picked up a novel and got completely absorbed in it. Xiao Yuan, meanwhile, was completely absorbed in watching him. He would never have touched something like this. "Are you not scared of?" The sudden question snapped Xiao Wan out of his reading. But what Xiao Wan was really thinking was, he must know who I really am. Sooner or later I'll get him to slip up. The only thing I'm actually worried about is, this guy may be young, but he's dangerously aggressive. One wrong move and I'm completely done for. The tension between them kept building. Xiao Wan quickly changed the subject and asked how old he was. Xiao Wan answered with a smug grin, 16. So he's a little younger than me. Just a pup who hasn't fully grown yet. Xiao Yuan leaned in close to his ear. "Age doesn't matter. Either way, you belong to me and only me from now on." Xiao Wan chose to ignore his boldness. Sitting there on pins and needles pretending to lose himself in them. One day while Xiao Wan was visiting the Empress Dowager, Xiao Wan ordered a servant to bring a ladder. Being cooped up in this manner every day was driving him crazy. He just wanted a glimpse at the outside, but when the vast imperial city came into view, he suddenly felt a strange sense of familiarity. Just as he was racking his brain trying to figure it out, a sharp voice cut through. "What do you think you're doing?" He spun around on instinct and met Xiao Yuan's ice-cold stare. The man firmly told him to get down, while opening his arms and waiting to catch up. Xiao Wan was speechless. Was he seriously treating him like a little kid? But you know what you gotta do when you're under someone else's roof. So he just jumped down like a good boy. The guy was young, but surprisingly solid. The one thing he still couldn't figure out, how does someone with such warm lips say such cold, heartless things? "Didn't I already tell you? You try to run, and I'll break your legs." The disgraced kept under lock and key by his own brother. He tried to climb the wall just to catch a glimpse of the outside world, and got threatened with a broken leg for it. He tried to explain he was just looking around, but that bastard wasn't having any of it. He just threw him over his shoulder, and hauled him straight to the inner courtyard, then tossed him onto the bed. The whole room filled with a dangerous tension. Xiao Wan was forcibly kissed by Prince K, trapped with nowhere to run. His lips were left bruised and bleeding. "This is my turf. You're not going anywhere." Seeing Xiao Yuan moving in on him again, Xiao Ling acted faster and bit him. He appears I had Basengal here would take him off, but it only seemed to get him more fired up. "You want highness, what exactly do you want from me?" Xiao Yuan savored the taste of blood on his lips and flashed a wicked smile. "I want you to be my..." Ling's face went pale with shock. "Bah, are you seriously trying to make me your plaything?" Xiao Yuan didn't even bother responding. "Come on, comply, and I'll break your legs. Simple as that." This guy was absolutely insufferable, no 2 ways about it. Gao Ling had no choice but to play it sweet and try to calm him down. As at the end of the day, if he made him angry, he'd be the one who suffered. Watching Xiao Yun's expression grow darker by the second, he thought fast and pulled him into a hug. "I'm done. Wrong to be mad. I promise I won't run away again, okay?" And just like that, Xiao Yuan was won over. But the truth was all that tough talk was just bluster. Deep down, Xi Qiaoyuan had fallen for Xi Qiaoling since they were kids. Since they first met, while all the other brothers looked on with cold, indifferent eyes, Xi Qiaoling was the only one who smiled and reached out his hand to him. Xi Qiaoling became the one person he could never get out of his heart. A major scandal erupted in the palace. A secret affair between the fourth prince and his personal guard turned out to be connected to the very place where the crown prince had gone missing. So the guard was chauffeured as an assassin. The emperor flew into a rage, threw him in the dungeon, and ordered Prince Yu Wai, Xi Qiaoqi, to be confined to his quarters. Each doing their own thing, no questions asked. The fourth prince loved sneaking off into the woods with his personal guard, and the whole city was buzzing with. The sixth prince had his eyes on the crown prince's look, and schemed to have him locked up in his men. At the moment, the crown prince was playing chess with Xi Qiao, asking if he could go check out the front courtyard if he won. Xiao Wan knew he was no match for the crown prince, but still watched him within that fun. If you win, I'll let you go. This time, the little rabbit had eaten the big bat, but before Xi Qiaoling could even celebrate, Xi Qiaoyuan flashed that wicked smirk. Since when do I keep my word? Xi Qiaoling was absolutely speechless. Just then, a guard came in with a report, saying the crown prince had been found, but he was still out cold and hadn't woken up yet. Before Xiaowan could even open his, he jumped in with his knife shot. This is almost certainly a fake, but if His Majesty says he's back, then as long as the heir apparent is still around, nobody else has ground to make a move. His Majesty just played a brilliant Listening to the crown prince break it all down so clean, Xi Qiaoyuan found it thoroughly amusing and gave his thigh a pat. Xi Qiaoling knew exactly what this scoundrel was thinking, and even though he was annoyed, he had no choice but to go sit on his lap. Xi Qiaoyuan stared at him with that utterly dope. Didn't you want to go out and take a look? I'll take you right now. But that depends on how sincere you are. Xi Qiaoling knew exactly what this scoundrel had in mind, so he just leaned in and planted a kiss on her. After all, finding out about his origins was the top priority right now. Xi Qiaoling was puzzled about why he had to wear a veil. If some fool dares to sneak a look, I'll gouge his eyes out with my own hands. Xi Qiaoling was completely speechless. If you became emperor, you'd be a total tyrant. Xi Qiaoyuan wasn't the least bit Instead, he leaned and called, Then Lin Lang, why don't you be my wise empress and keep me in check? Xi Qiaoling awkwardly turned his head away. Forget it. We're just talking past each other. I can't even be bothered with you. The morning light hit the glazed tiles, casting everything in a warm golden glow, giving Xi Qiaoling a strange feeling that he'd been here before. Just as he was lacking in trying to figure it out, Xi Qiaoyuan suddenly wrapped his arms around him and asked if he liked it here. What does it matter if I like it? You still won't let me go over there. That unexpectedly set Xi Qiaoyuan off. The scoundrel bit down on his neck. Isn't being by my side good enough for you? Qiaoyuan really lives up to his reputation as a little wolf cub. He bit the crown prince on the mouth and then went straight for the neck, his most sensitive spot. Xi Qiaoling was honestly scared stiff. You said you'd break my legs. There was no way I was gonna run. Hearing that, Xi Qiaoyuan cupped his face and said, Be good. I can't live without you. Soon it was time to head back to the capital. Xi Qiaoyuan gently swept his brother up in his arms and tucked him away inside his own carriage. The second prince noticed something was off and asked him if he was hiding a secret. Xi Qiaoyuan coolly brushed it off, saying a delicate beauty from his household couldn't handle the cold wind, then made up some excuse and left early. The second prince was fuming. None of these younger brothers gave him the slightest bit of respect. Xi Qiaoling was reading when Xi Qiaoyuan interrupted him. Right out of his head. Xi Qiaoyuan rested him on his own lap and said it'd be more comfortable that way. Xi Qiaoling didn't argue. The carriage was too bumpy anyway, so it actually suited him just fine. Xi Qiaoyuan affectionately brushed the hair from the crown prince's face. Even as his legs went numb, he couldn't bring himself to wake him. Only once the crown prince was sound asleep did he gently lay him down. He stepped out of the carriage and told the guards to get food ready. Meanwhile, Xi Qiaoqi felt like his whole world had fallen apart. His Jiangshi was dead and all he could do was give him a proper burial, nothing more. The Jiangshi had taken the blame to protect him, a crime he never committed. He swore he would get revenge and make Sai Charang pay in blood for what he'd done to them. Xi Qiaoling woke up in a daze, only to find the carriage door completely stuck. He faintly heard Xi Qiaoling talking to someone, and when he poked his head out to look, the person seemed strangely familiar. Li Hang, his cousin on his mother's side, his childhood companion and study partner, and his most devoted supporter. Xie Qiaoyuan was staring Li Hang down calmly, then drew his sword and pressed it straight against his throat. Qiaoyuan had absolutely zero patience for Li Hang. Back when they were kids, he wanted to give the crown prince a top quality fox pelt hunter. This guy had blocked him. In the struggle, he torn the fox pelt to shreds. Xie Qiaoyuan lost it and beat him up on the spot. What made it worse was that the crown prince had seen the whole thing. From that point on, Xi Qiaoyuan became the most unwelcome guest at the crown prince's palace. Li Hang was caught completely off guard by the sudden hostility. He could tell that Xi Qiaoyuan genuinely wanted him dead. The prince had been keeping the amnesia crown prince locked up in his estate, even setting up a private residence just for. He called it the Princess Consort's personal court. Xi Qiaoling turned his head. If I'm really the princess, how does your highness dare make it official with the court? Then he shook his head in disappointment. Maybe he was just fooling himself. Xi Qiaoyuan clearly dodged the question on purpose, reminding him it was time to bathe. He'd have dinner sent over later. After his bath, Xi Qiaoling felt completely refreshed. He had no idea that Kaiyang was right behind him gazing at him with total admiration. Lin Lang, are you doing this on purpose just to test me? Xi Qiaoling met his gaze briefly. Your highness is overthinking. Xi Qiaoyuan couldn't help but feel the crown prince's temperament was still as gentle as ever. So he started kneading Xi Qiaoling's back. Thinking to himself, the crown prince couldn't be a crown prince above all men anymore. He could only be his Lin Lang and his alone. Maybe his gaze was a little too charged. Qiaoling suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. Something about this vibe was seriously off. He decided to ask Xi Qiaoyuan what he was thinking, but the man turned the right back on him. What are you thinking?
Xi Qiaoling,
I'm thinking I should move somewhere else, when you're with your ladies in the future. A little did he know, those words had hit a nerve with Xi Qiao. Had he grabbed Xi Qiaoling and pulled him out of the pool in one swift motion. This is my estate. There's no escaping no matter what. Then he kissed him hard. Xi Qiaoling used every ounce of strength he had to push him away. Are you really gonna force yourself on me? Tears of grievance welled up in his eyes. That heartbreakingly pitiful expression cut right through Xi Qiao. He had never seen the crown prince look like this before. Xiao Yuan looked at him with deep tenderness. Will you be mine? Sai Qiaoling looked away. If I say no, would you even listen? Of course not. Xiao Yuan rejected that notion without a shred of guilt. He picked up a length of silk nearby and wrapped it around the person in his arm. Xiao Ling's mind went blank. Great, looks like there's no getting out of this tonight. He's gonna have his way with me completely. He stared at the man in horror. Look, it's not a good time right now. Can we do this another day? Gave a devilish smile. From the very first day you stepped into this, you should have known this was always gonna happen. The Crown Prince woke up that morning with a sore rubbed his aching lower back with a grimace. Only then remembering that the damn prince had completely wrecked him the night before. Truth be told, Xia Xiaoling had tried to fight back at first. Even though his memories, his pride as the Crown Prince was still very much intact. He lunged at Shi Qiaoyuan with a dagger while his guard was down. Shi Qiaoyuan instinctively sidestepped the killing blow. He fixed Shi Xiaoling with an icy stare and said nothing. But seeing the other man in a complete panic, he found himself momentarily caught off. This was the first time he had ever seen his royal brother looking like that. Shi Xiaoling forced himself to stay. If your highness weren't forcing me into this, it never would have come. The words sounded bold, but there was zero real threat behind his voice. He would have been tossed. But instead Shi Qiaoyuan just gave a ticklish smile and snatched the dagger right out of Shi Xiaoling's hand, completely ignoring the cut it left on his palm, and gazed at him with deep tender. If Lin Lan likes it, I'll wipe it clean and give it to you. Shi Qiaoling was eaten up with guilt over what had happened, and frantically insisted on bandaging the wound. Shi Qiaoyuan was absolutely delighted inside. Seeing his royal brother in such a flustered state was instantly entertaining. He leaned and close eyes locked on him. Lin Lan, are you actually worried about? Shi Qiaoling grew even more flustered. Why was this little prince so impossibly heavy? Even with no memory. I was clearly never an easygoing person. If my brother were this insufferable, I'd have to beat some sense into him just to let off. He thought he had scared his royal brother, and quickly leaned in to reassure him there was nothing to be afraid of. Xiaoling was speechless. There he goes again, dragging things out. Alright, fine. Have it your way. Take it easy, will you? And so the prince got what he wanted. Every single part of his body was sore and wrecked, thinking back on what happened the night before. To even think about. And then he saw that insufferable Prince Chiefly Paying Kush prepared ahead. Hai Xiaoling was so annoyed he lost his appetite entirely. He shot him a sarcastic look. Your highness doesn't need to stoop so low as to wait on me. But Shi Qiaoyuan wasn't about to take the bait. He just held out the bull and refused to pull. The two of them were at a standoff for a good 15 minutes. Shi Qiaoling was the one who caved. He grudgingly took the porridge. Whatever, no point in punishing his own stomach over. When Shi Qiaoling got pinned down on the couch by that insufferable prince, he knew there was no getting out of it. Better to just go along with it than fight it. And suffer. At least that way it hurt less. Sure enough, the next morning he was sore all over. That annoying prince actually knew how to take care of someone. He'd thoughtfully laid out cushions ahead of time, and even made him a pot of nutritious porridge himself. But what the heck was with the abalone in the bowl? After breakfast when Shi Qiaoling tried to read, the prince wouldn't leave him alone. He kept bringing up everything that happened the night before. Shi Qiaoling's face turned beet red. He had zero interest in dealing with this shameless child. He only forgave him because he promised to take him out. But then the prince said something that completely set him off again. If your back's sore, walk it off. Loosening up now means you'll be good to go again tonight. Shi Qiaoling couldn't even be bothered hard. But that's why he called him Big Brother. Shi Qiaoyuan's long fingers paused for just a second. Didn't you say you were older than me? It's just a little something to spice things up. But Shi Qiaoling was absolutely speechless. The fact that the prince could say something that shameless with a straight face was truly something else. Shi Qiaoling didn't even try to pull away. Last night I taught him exactly how stubborn and Zhang Yuan is. Better not to poke the bear. The vast manor was eerily quiet. Not a single woman inside and barely any servants. For all his smiles, the prince was clearly carrying something heavy inside. It made the whole place feel unsettlingly gloomy. Hard to believe he was only 16. No telling how he'd ended up like this. They climbed to the highest tower in the manor, high enough to look out over the entire estate. When Shi Qiaoling spotted the private soldiers drilling in the training yard below, a cold chill ran down his spine. No wonder this prince had the nerve to eye the crown princess Shi. That was clearly no idle talk. Even though Shi Qiaoling looked at him with meticulous care, Shi Qiaoling just couldn't bring himself to feel close to him. That overwhelming pressure rolling off the man kept him on edge. So he turned and headed to the back garden, asked the servant for fish food and started feeding, trying to shake off the restless unease inside. Seeing the crown prince so relaxed and at ease. If only things could stay like this forever. So that reckless prince let the crown prince's carriage walking and nearly threw Leng Yin's back out in the process. I can't Alan was seething inside, but he knew better than to let it show. After all, if that crazy prince went off the rails, there was no telling what he'd do next. The stuck inside that carriage was mind, numbingly boring, so Shi Qiaoling asked to ride a horse and get some air. The prince didn't say no, he just tossed him the riding whip. But made it crystal clear, don't ride out of his sight. Shi Qiaoling swung up onto the horse in one smooth motion, ready to finally ride off into the open. Whip cracking, galloping through the wind, that long-lost taste of freedom hit him so hard he completely forgot Shi Qiaoyuan's warning. Then out of nowhere a horse caught right into his path. Shi Qiaoling tensed up and locked eyes on the right. He remembered this guy he'd come looking for Shi Qiaoyuan. The two of them had almost come to blows. Li Hang had this nagging feeling he'd seen this guy before, so he demanded to know who he was. Right then, Shi Qiaoyuan's voice came from behind, cold and flat, telling Shi Qiaoling to come back. Li Hang was furious, but he wasn't about to push it. Shi Qiaoling also felt like that guy looked familiar, but right now that wasn't his problem. What he was really scared of was that crazy prince cooking up another punishment. Once Shi Qiaoling got back, he was locked straight inside the carriage. Nobody outside would talk to him, and the door wouldn't budge. Shi Qiaoling was jolted awake by sunlight streaming. The prince pulled back the curtain, stone-faced, and told him to get out. Shi Qiaoling crossed his arms. He wasn't moving. Who did this guy think he was locking him up and letting him out whenever he felt like it? Xiao Yuan responded in a cold flash. I told you, don't leave my sight. Did you hear me or not? Shi Qiaoling knew he was in the wrong, but the prince's attitude made him feel totally humiliated. They stared each other down, neither one backing off until finally Shi Qiaoling caved first. He smiled and reached up to help him down, but Xi Qiaoling still wasn't letting it go. Do you even admit you were wrong? Xi Qiaoyuan raised an eyebrow playfully. What exactly did I do wrong? If you really care about me, you should treat me with some respect. Xi Qiaoyuan just smirked at that. And what exactly do you think I am to you, Linglan? Xi Qiaoling's face fell. He realized he had absolutely no shot at winning an argument with this. So he swallowed his pride and climbed down from the chair. But the second they reached their destination, Li Heng's men closed in and surrounded them. That little lord dragged the crown prince to an inn, and just when things were about to get good, someone started shouting outside the door. Xi Qiaoyuan stepped out and his face dropped. It was Li Heng again, ruining everything. Yuan was furious. He thought Li Heng was still riding on his cousin the crown prince's coattail. The Eastern Palace can barely think it. The hell do you think you are? Li Heng was seething, but there was absolutely nothing he could do. But Zhao Yun barely managed to hold back the urge to kill him, then went back inside to be with the crown prince. Back in the inner chambers, Xi Qiaoyuan found the crown prince about to take his shirt off and wipe his back, right in front of the servant. Xiao Yuan stiffened up and told him to stop having the servants do that kind of thing. Look completely innocent. I can't reach my own back. You don't expect his lordship to do it, do you? Oddly enough, that was exactly what Xi Qiaoyuan had in mind. He told Xi Qiaoling to lie down right then and there. Xi Qiaoling obediently took off his shirt, and his pale back was suddenly right there in front of him. Completely transfixed, after a long moment, he picked up a warm towel and gently wiped Xi Qiaoling's back, softly telling him to behave. I'll worry if you go and get yourself lost. Found this soft side of the lord oddly surprising. He kept his cool and asked, is that for real? If I do as I'm told, can you dial back that bossy attitude of yours? Xi Qiaoyuan dropped his voice low. As long as you're here, I'll treat you right. The next day, Xi Qiaoling took the crown prince to the training ground. Xiao Rong standing nearby mocked him for being too cozy with the guards, and for letting a servant ride his horse. Look of total contempt, I do what I want and no one can put a price on that. Unless second brother has his eye on my horse and is just beating around the bush trying to get it from me. Shi Qiaorong was left speechless, and had no way to deal with him. Meanwhile, down below the viewing platform, Xi Qiaoling had the strange nagging feeling that he'd been here before. The emperor finally appeared before the gathered ministers. His whole point was to use the military review to send a message to anyone thinking of stepping out of line. But the very first shot from the newly developed cannon misfired, right in front of everyone. Xi Qiaoyuan leaned in and whispered in the crown prince's ear, the real show's about to start. Just like Xi Qiaoyuan said, all 5 cannons fired and every single one of them misfired. The emperor's face went dark as he stormed off. Xi Qiaoling shot him a suspicious look. Back at the estate, he was still uneasy, with a bad feeling he couldn't shake. He asked whether Xi Qiaoyuan had something to do with all of it. Xi Qiaoyuan cocked his face with a grin. Lin Lan, you give me way too much credit. I'm not that capable. Xi Qiaoling was pretty sure not a single word out of his mouth was true. He gave up asking and turned away annoyed. Fine. Don't tell me then. Xie Qiaoyuan smirked and tilted the crown prince's chin up with his finger. Lin Lang, are you actually worried about me? Xi Qiaoling's face flushed red. He figured if he could keep the little lord in a good mood, he'd at least have fewer headaches. But just as the words of concern were on the tip of his tongue, Xi Qiaoyuan waved him off and said never mind, leaving Xi Qiaoling completely thrown off.